Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the official 2023 Mock Draft 2.0, where I go through different mock drafts, kind of look at the current trends, what's been happening, where do all these quarterbacks line up. We just had CJ Stroud officially declare, so he is in the draft. But first, I wanted to talk about just a little fun tool I sometimes look at. It's just who has the most draft capital, who has the most overall power when it comes to the 2023 draft. It looks like the Houston Texans, you can see the value there, almost 1,500 total points, whatever that means, but that amounts to the second overall pick, the 12th overall pick, and the 34th overall pick. Seattle coming in second. Really, any team that has 2 first-round picks are going to have top value, but the Houston Texans, the second pick, the 12th pick, 2 picks within the top 12, and then an early second pick, they've got significant value. Also, Detroit, the 2 first-round picks, the second first-round pick coming from that Matt Stafford trade still, and then you can see Chicago, kind of interesting, Chicago making that bad trade. I still think it just, I know you want to get, a weapon for Justin Fields, but trading what turns out to be the 32nd overall pick for Justin Fields is just simply not smart. When it comes to the actual mock draft, this is the consensus model, and then we'll look at all the trades, because with the way the 2023 draft is kind of materializing, we are expecting, a trade to the number 1 spot. Chicago very likely will trade down unless they fall in love with Will Anderson. I don't think you can draft Jalen Carter number 1 overall and really, it doesn't make any sense. Jalen Carter is not, this is another Trayvon Walker situation. There's not enough overall substance in production to warrant a number 1 overall selection for Jalen Carter. I understand he's a defensive tackle, but still. So you can see Will Anderson, obviously not surprising. If they were to stay at number 1, a lot of people think, a lot of mock drafts have him going. Bryce Young is the consensus right now, number 1 overall quarterback. Of course, it depends what team falls in love with which QB. There's mock drafts that have the Colts trading up to number 1. There's mock drafts that have the Raiders trading up to number 1. Those are the 2 teams. You can see this mock draft has Jalen Carter going number 3 to Arizona. I do think Arizona might be another team. They either stay at 3 and draft one of the 2 elite defensive, whether it's Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, or they trade down for a team that might want another QB if there's an early run on QBs. You've got CJ Stroud going number 4 to the Colts. I think CJ Stroud needs a dome, so I love that fit for CJ at number 4. Myles Murphy, I'm not the biggest fan of. Very raw, very young. Bryan Bresee, that's someone I really like, which is kind of surprising because he's been injured and hasn't really produced, but I think it's just been unfortunate injury luck rather than him being injury prone, and he was the former number 1 overall prospect in the class of 2020 according to the recruiting rankings. Will Levis going number 7 overall to Vegas. I don't hate Will Levis. I really don't. Vegas, it seems like it's time to move on from Derek Carr. What will they be able to get for him? There's speculation they might actually be able to get a first-round pick. I don't know. They've got another pass rusher, Tyree Wilson, going number 8. That's another pass rusher I don't like. These raw pass rushers I'm just not a fan of. Anthony Richardson going number 9. I think, every year there seems to be 1 or 2 quarterbacks. I don't see it with Anthony Richardson. He's very raw, but I do understand if a team's going to fall in love with him, they're going to draft him. So if Carolina likes him, you can warrant drafting him inside the top 10. Yes, if you think he's going to be a franchise quarterback, you're going to pick him early. Ringo at number 10, totally disagree. I think Joey Porter Jr. is the number 1 cornerback. Paris Johnson Jr., the number 1 offensive tackle. I could see that. Paris is a really good player. He's had back-to-back really solid years. His first year at the tackle position this year, he was a former 5-star. He's an absolute stud. He's going to be really good in the NFL. And that would pair Paris Johnson Jr. with NPF, who I thought was really underrated, and NPF had a really good rookie year. Quentin Johnston, I think, is going to be a total bust. Just my opinion. Jones, the offensive tackle, should be pretty good. Maybe like an Andrew Thomas type from Georgia. JSN going 14th overall. He would have to really show at the combine that he's healthy. You know, that's his big concern, but I do like JSN as the number one wide receiver in this class, assuming he's healthy, and it's just the hamstring problem with JSN, just the hamstring. Michael Mayer, I'm interested to see how fast Michael Mayer is. He kind of disappointed me when I watched him against Ohio State in week 1. He looked real slow. Maybe that was just me seeing things. I don't know. Cam Smith I really like. Joey Porter I like. Christian Gonzalez I think is going to be a total bust. Foskey, the edge rusher, mediocre. Torrance is an interior offensive lineman who I think is going to be a stud, but the question becomes, how high do you draft an offensive lineman? This kid was PFF's number 1 overall graded O-lineman. Noah Sewell, that's a big projection for him. He's more of a He was a former 5-star, but he did not warrant the type of production to be drafted inside the top 25. Bijan Robinson's going to be really good. I think that's great value but I don't know, why would Baltimore take him with J.K. Dobbins, supposedly back healthy? I'm not sure about that. Jordan Addison at 23. If they lose Adam Thielen, I guess, that would be... it seems kind of repetitive. I would like to get a bigger possession receiver to pair with Justin Jefferson, personally. A bigger possession receiver. No consensus here for the Jaguars. Trenton Simpson, former 5-star, we'll see. Witherspoon, I really like. He's an aggressive corner. Washington is an elite blocking tight end. Oh, I would like to see Washington with Joe Burrow. I'm surprised he's being mocked in the first round. Harrison, an offensive tackle from Oklahoma, we will see. Brian Branch, I think, is a top 15 pick. Gibbs, running back from Bama. Oh, they've got the tight end, Dalton Kincaid. I like this kid a lot as the number 31 overall pick, and that's the last pick of the first round there. Nolan Smith, things like that. So looking at some other drafts, I like looking through these to see kind of who they expect. We've got one that says, Chicago's staying at number 1. They're not trading down. They're just going to take Will Anderson. Bryce Young goes 2. Jalen Carter goes 3. That's pretty chalky. This one has the Indianapolis Colts trading up to number 1, drafting Bryce Young, which is kind of interesting because I heard that the Colts GM really values size when it comes to QBs, and maybe the Colts would go to C.J. Stroud, but that's just speculation. And then this has Houston staying at number 2, drafting C.J. Stroud, and this would be best case scenario for Arizona. You can stay at number 3. You have the ability to trade down if someone is obsessed with Will Levis and gives you a king's ransom, or you just draft possibly the best player in the class, Will Anderson, who's an absolute superstar. How about this? You've got the Raiders trading up to 1 here. You've got Carolina moving to 2, and then Broderick Jones, of all people, being drafted number 3. I'm not going to say it can't happen because we haven't even been through the draft process, the pre-draft process, things like that. Will Levis goes number 1 to Indy. So we're seeing really Indianapolis trade to 1. Maybe, the Raiders, Carolina, those are the teams right now. It is looking like Seattle is going to stick with Geno Smith and offer him an extension, so they're probably out of the running for a quarterback. Bryce Young 2, Will Anderson 3, Jalen Carter going number 1. I would disagree with that completely. Bryce Young 2, that's a win for Houston. They get to stay at 2 and just draft the quarterback they want. And then Will Anderson 3, Will Anderson 1, Bryce Young 2, Jalen Carter 3, Will Anderson, Bryce Young, Jalen Carter. So they're not projecting trades in some of these, which surprises me. And you can see here's another trade. Indianapolis getting Bryce Young, Houston with and this is probably one of the more realistic ones. It has 3 quarterbacks going in the top 3. Obviously, these quarterbacks are all going to have to test well enough and have good enough interviews to warrant top 3 selections. But this is normally what happens. If you get 3 highly thought of QB prospects, they will be drafted within the first 3. There will be multiple trades. You will see Arizona trading down because they already have a quarterback. you will see Chicago trading down because they already have a quarterback. And these are the three teams right now, along with the Raiders. It's Indianapolis, it's Houston, it's Carolina, and it's Vegas. It's four teams with possibly three quarterbacks, maybe four quarterbacks if you think Anthony Richardson could be a top 10 pick as well. But that's kind of how it's materializing right now. And that is the official update. Some of these are kind of old. Well, I guess they're really not old. This is like only 3 days old. Will Anderson, Bryce Young, Jalen Carter. This has a trade up by Detroit to draft Jalen Carter. So that's a little rare right there. Will Anderson, Young, Jalen Carter. Bryce Young going number 1 to Indy. Stroud going 2. And Will Anderson going 3. But most of these don't even have trades, it looks like. Indianapolis, a favorite here to move up to number 1 in some of these and get Bryce Young. You can see this one has Will Levis going 2, Will Anderson going 3. But yeah, so I just wanted to go through these, kind of look at where we stand right now and really look at, who has the most power when it comes to the 2023 draft, and also, who has the least power. You've got Miami, and I mean, Miami. Wait, I thought Miami owned someone else's. Miami got their own first-round pick taken away by the NFL, but I thought they owned someone's. Did they trade that as well? It's saying they only own the 52nd pick, the 78th, 85th. That is not a lot of draft capital. I think Miami got screwed by the NFL. I don't know how you can take away a first-round pick. That's a valuable asset to take away for some pretty weak tampering that a lot of teams do. And I'm not even a Miami fan. But San Francisco, I mean, if you're going to have lower draft capital, you got to be a better team. So San Francisco's elite. Baltimore's a really good team, but they got the whole Lamar Jackson thing. Minnesota, at least they have their first-round pick. New Orleans, they don't even have their first-round pick. The Rams, they never have their first-round pick. The Browns traded it for Deshaun Watson. Buffalo does own their first-round pick. I think Buffalo, at some point, you got to draft a running back. I told them to take Breece Hall last year. They didn't listen. They end up taking James Cook in like the late second round. He's a scat back. You need a legitimate running back. I really think the running back position is starting to become undervalued. If I was Buffalo and Bijan Robinson was there at 22, I would trade 30 and 62 to move up and get Bijan Robinson. I would. Running back is actually becoming undervalued because originally it was overvalued, but now it's undervalued. It's like they've gone too far in the opposite direction now when it comes to the running back position. But that is the official Mock Draft 2.0 update. Guys, make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.